Entonces, esta conferencia va a ser dada en inglés para aquellas personas que no entiendan o no comprendan parte de esta exposición. Perdón, también saludamos la presencia acá del rector nacional, ¿no? Gracias por su presencia. Y para las personas que no entiendan inglés, se va a hacer en el grupo de participantes, se va a tener acá un enlace para que puedan ir viendo la conferencia en español. ¿Sí? El tiempo de duración de la exposición es aproximadamente 30 a 40 minutos. Posteriormente se harán las preguntas respectivas. Bienvenido. Oops. Oh. Las personas que necesiten seguir la exposición con traducción, ahí está el enlace, está justamente en el grupo ANIDI Crisis, ¿sí? Así que, bueno, gracias.
Estoy esperando a la presentación.
Por favor, me dicen que a ese grupo mucha gente no tiene acceso, que por favor se mande al grupo de participantes. Gracias.
No hay problema. No funciona. Ese control no funciona. Por favor. Bueno, gracias. Bueno. Hola, muy buenos días a juntos. Es un placer estar aquí. Muchas gracias por la invitación. Puedo hablar español, pero solo un poco. No es suficiente para dar una presentación en español y por eso es necesario de cambiar al inglés. Perdón. All right. So, but I'm not a native English speaker, so I guess all of you may understand me, and I'm trying to not to speak too fast. All right. So the title of my presentation is Legal Obligations to Carry Out Investment Appraisals for Energy Measures in Order to Stimulate Greenhouse Gas Abatement in Companies. And as you just said, experiences from 2 years of law application in Germany and transferability. I chose this topic because it's an experiment of the German government that had started about 2.5 years ago, and it's quite new, a quite special approach, which might be interesting for other countries, perhaps for Bolivia as well. And therefore, I'm trying to explain what it is, and then at the end of my presentation, I'm trying to talk about the possibility to maybe transfer it to other countries like Bolivia. First of all, let me just introduce myself to you very quickly. My background is being an industrial engineer, and since 17 years, I've been working as a professor for management accounting and energy management. Before that, before my university career, I was director of a management accounting department with a big production industry company and had other jobs. What might be interesting is that what is relevant for my presentation is that I'm a member of the German Energy Management Standardization Committee, which is called DIN, and based on that, I'm a German delegate to the ISO, the International and the European Energy Management Standardization Committee. And as part of that, I was the initiator and the project leader of the standardization project, Valerie. It's called Valerie, stands for Valuation of Energy-Related Investments. And the output was a European standard, which was released about 3 years ago. And this is one of the but it's a relevant part of my presentation. All right, next slide. The content of my presentation. What is it about? Since about 2 years, approximately 39,000 German companies are required by law, and this is very new, to regularly develop energy efficiency improvement measures as part of their energy management system according to the international standard ISO 15001. So first of all, 39,000 companies have to introduce energy management system according to this international standard, and based on that, they have to develop energy efficiency measures. After that, they have to calculate the net present value, the NPV of each measure in accordance with another standard, this Valerie standard, so with a new European standard Valerie, to determine whether or not such measures are economically beneficial. And if so, if they are beneficial, they have to implement these measures by law. They are pushed to do this. If a company does not comply with the legal requirements, it will be fined. So this is a quite new approach. And my two questions that I would like to raise is, first, what are the experiences of the 2 years of practice so far? And secondly, and if their experiences were positive, and I can tell you they have already been positive, could that be a model for other countries, perhaps for Bolivia? So in the center, there are two standards that I've already mentioned. One is the ISO 15001 on the left-hand side, International Standard for Energy Management Systems. On the right-hand side, this is the European standard. I have it with me here. So these two standards, which is called, the abbreviation is Valerie, for Valuation of Energy-Related Investments. So far in Germany, these two standards together have been embedded into 8 legal acts. Some of them are obligations. That means that companies have to apply these two standards. So 39,000 companies, that's quite a bit. And the other part is companies can get privileges, for example, tax reductions in return for implementing these two standards. So it is kind of very widespread kind of thing. And this is what I would like to call it's a new energy policy approach, particularly for companies. So let me start with this. How did that come about? What was the background story of that? Oh, sorry. So how did that come about? Let's go back to the 1990s, 1999. At that time, the German government tried to find instruments for motivating companies to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. So at the beginning of the 21st century, there was a lack of effective political instruments to reduce greenhouse gas emissions of companies, and they introduced CO2 emission taxes, energy taxes, and CO2 emission certificates. So that was about 25 years ago. 10 years later, several investigations were carried out and came to the point that the tax impact seemed to be quite poor, so the instruments was not very effective. And on the other hand, these energy taxes led to high energy costs, and that was a strategic advantage on the international market. And there was a danger of carbon leakage. This is what the big company said to the government. And the government accepted that and said, okay, we have to change something. That was, as I said, about 15 years ago, so 2011. And the government said, okay, the energy-intensive companies, we grant them energy tax reductions up to 90% of the energy taxes, but in return demanded the introduction. That was the starting point with ISO 50001. But in return demanded the introduction of energy management systems in accordance with the very new, at that time, 2011, ISO 15001. So, and this had an impact as follows. The demand for ISO 15001 jumped up. On the next slide, I show you a statistical overview of the ISO 15001 application worldwide. And what you can see is that Germany, as a not very big country, is since then the world leader of the application of ISO 15001. And this is not because German managers like energy management. That's not the point. It is a reaction on legal activities of the governmental activities. So since then, we are the leader before China, France, Spain, and so on and so forth. Sorry. Okay, let's go back to the beginning of the whole thing. In 1999, as I said, energy taxes were introduced. 10 years later, as I said before, 50001 was embedded into different legal acts, but as I said, the result was not satisfying. And what was like 10 years after that, so about 2-3 years ago, again, several investigations were carried out, and they came to the point that after 10 years of experience with law-embedded ISO 15001 system, it became clear that such instruments don't have a satisfying impact. Just to say, please introduce or implement 50001 and nothing else. Simply demanding the implementation of the standard and nothing more is not enough. It is no guarantee of significant improvements in energy efficiency and GHG, greenhouse gas abatement. Something had to be changed. And at that time, it was recognized that there is an energy efficiency gap. And this should be exploited by means of energy policy instruments. What is meant by that? What is the energy efficiency gap about? Let me just quickly introduce you to this. Since the early 90s, numerous empirical studies have been published which demonstrate that in production industry companies, there are often huge energy efficiency potentials, very often huge energy efficiency potentials of which the exploitation would generate economic benefits, but they are not exploited. This phenomenon, here are some of the publications, this phenomenon is called energy efficiency gap and caused by so-called barriers. What are these barriers? Let me just quickly introduce you to this energy efficiency gap, what it is, what are the barriers, and what can be done against it. I would like to demonstrate it by using this roadmap. Here on the left-hand side, you see whatever energy-consuming process. This is the starting point, and at the end, we want to have a real energy or carbon performance improvement. And what has to be done on the way to it? So first of all, you have several prerequisites that have to be fulfilled, starting with the selection of the relevant process. Interaction process person, somebody has to take care of it. Then you need the right people. You need energy knowledge for kind of improving something. You need awareness, motivation, creativity. Time, of course, is necessary. Expectation to be heard by the bosses, by the board of directors. Then evaluation of existing data. first draft of idea, first estimate, analysis of cost information, and so on and so forth, until you reach the goal, until you reach the end, the real energy carbon performance improvement. And on the way, from the start to the end, there are several barriers. Here are the barriers that have been found out by these investigations. So first of all, split incentives, for example. So you need incentives to make the people being motivated to, look for energy efficiency or greenhouse gas reduction potentials. You need, then the next problem is imperfect information. Then hidden costs. Bounded rationality. What is meant is that the knowledge very often is not there to find the potentials. Then payback time restrictions and unclear decision paths. So, and that was discussed in the energy ministry in Germany. They were discussing this problem of energy efficiency gap. And at the very end, they, had the idea to introduce this new standard, which just before had been released. That was in the year 2021, the Valerie standard. And the German government thought with this standard, we may kind of kick out of at least some of the barriers to give the companies better possibilities to exploit the energy efficiency potentials. All right. Okay. But what is Valerie? What is this this strange standard? What is it about? Let me just give you a short introduction. It has 4 sections. First of all, you set up a model. You have an idea. You have an idea of how to reduce energy consumption, how to reduce energy greenhouse gas emissions. You have the idea. You set up a model. I show it by using an example in a moment. So you set up a model. Then you do the calculation. Then we have an assessment, and the result is going to be put into a report that is published. So it is, in other words, it's a procedure for setting up a model, financial calculation methodology, just one, net present value, not payback time. Oops, sorry. Then it is a guideline on how to interpret the results and a documentation structure. Let me give you a quick insight by using an example. Here's one. So this is setting up a model, number A. You have an idea. So this is the starting point always. You need people that, they are creative enough to find ideas of how to reduce energy consumption. And then you say, okay, what is that? In this particular case here, it is it's a replacement of old inefficient pumps. And then first of all, you try to find out what are the benefits. So energy reduction and whatever. So economic benefits, energy saving, less maintenance, noise reduction, scrap value of old pumps, for example. And what are the efforts? Efforts, of course, are the investment payments at the very beginning and maybe other costs as well. You just put them in one table. Try to find out what is the quantity, if there's a monetization possible, then how high are the cash flows, and then when do these cash flows occur? You write everything down what is relevant for this idea in just one single table, okay? And then as soon as you think you are ready, as soon as you think the table is complete with all relevant information, that may take half a day or so, but that's not very much, I think. And then you transfer this information to a so-called net present value calculation table. And this is how it looks like. So it is nothing special. You can find it in all these, textbooks of investment appraisals. This is not new, but what is new is the whole procedure. So you put all this information of your model into this table and calculate the net present value. Yeah, and of course, you should be able to interpret the result. Here, this result is 239,000 euros. That seems to be quite good, and the company should go that way, should implement this measure. So at the end, this was step number 2. In the end, you have to interpret the result and put the interpretation into a report. It's all being done with one Excel data file. It just every improvement idea is one file, Excel file. That's it. So it's easy to handle. You put this interpretation of the result into this report, and that's it. All right. Good. And this is the Valerie standard. It's not very complicated. So let me go back to say Valerie bridges a gap in the exploitation of energy or climate performance improvement potentials. How? Let's have a look at this here first. We say usually there are 2 direct ways of reducing energy consumption or GHG emissions in companies. One way is energy efficiency improvement, yeah, with in houses or in production facilities or whatever. This is one way, or the other way is energy type replacement. So standard energy supply by renewable energy. Yeah, all right. And how can this be done in practice? How is it being done by people in companies? What is the standard way of, finding ideas until implementing new measures? First of all, we say you have to select an investment object, an investigation object. So it's a machine, it's a building or whatever. You say, okay, I focus on this production machine. Then you gather data and evaluate the data. This is the next step. After having the data, you have an idea of how big or how huge is the energy consumption, how big is the greenhouse gas emission. Then you develop ideas, improvement of energy efficiency or renewable implementation. Then after idea development, you estimate the potential and the costs. Then you value the idea, you do evaluation of the idea. If the valuation shows that it is economically beneficial, you try to get an approval. If the net present value is bigger than 0, then you implement, and at the very end, you secure the success. This is what the government at that time, when they introduced this approach, they said, okay, several of these steps are covered by the ISO 15001 approach, by this ISO 15001 standard. The investigation object selection, the data gathering, the idea development, and the securing process is covered by the ISO 15001. But there is still a gap. This was, found out at that time, so 10 years ago or something, and they said there is a gap. We need to, close to bridge the gap. And how can this be done? And then the idea was, okay, there's just one standard, the Valerie standard, being released on the European level. Why shouldn't we use this? And therefore, to make it complete, the German government says, okay, companies, we want the companies to apply this to standards together. All right? So coming back to the embedment of Valerie in German legislation. I'm almost at the end. So how does it work? So the new type of legal acts forces companies with above 2.5 gigawatt hours energy consumption per year to apply both, as I said, ISO 50001 and Valerie. They always start with the ISO 50001. They have to kind of fulfill or go through several steps. One of them is they have to determine the main energy consumers. And for each, we call it SAU, significant energy users. And for all these main energy consumers, they have to develop ideas, energy performance improvement actions, EPIAs. So very often in just normal size companies, I'm talking about between 100 and 4,000 employees, for example, very often the numbers of main energy consumers of SEUs is limited to 15, round about between 10 and 20. So very often 15, 16, 17 main consumers. That's not very many. And therefore it's easy to get an overview. It's not very complex. So with this 15, let's say 15 IPAIA, energy consumers, you have to develop improvement ideas. Not always you find one, but with 15 main energy consumers, often you may find like 10 ideas to improve the situation, to improve the energy consumption. And these ideas, these IPAIAs are then, being tested by the Valerie standard. So this is what the companies have to do. They take the ideas, the IPAIAs, and then they go through this Valerie procedure. And at the end, they get a result which has to be interpreted. And the interpretation goes into the report. And that's about it. Here's such a table from practice, how it works. So it is just one Excel spreadsheet. Here are your SEUs, then you have some energy consumption information being put into the cells. Then for each of the lines here, each line gets an energy performance improvement action. So these are the ideas. And then you calculate what is the impact of an idea, maybe minus 20%, minus 5% of energy consumption, and so on and so forth. And this has to be done when applying 15,001. And then after this, here's the break. So and then Valerie comes into play, and then you take these ideas here, calculate the net present values, write it down into the Excel spreadsheet, and do the interpretation, put it in the report. And at the very end, because it's a legal kind of thing, it's being controlled by public authorities, that companies don't do something what is not correct. All right? Good. And as I said before, it is quite new. About 39,000 companies are affected by this in Germany, and this is quite a huge number, I think. So what can I say after 2 years of application? Okay. What are the challenges first, and then the impacts? The challenges are as follows. 50,001 means for the companies considerable efforts for the implementation, particularly for beginners. When you implement 50,001 the first time, it's not that easy. I mean, many companies in Germany have done that because of this legal situation, and therefore I know it a little bit because we are in close contact with lots of companies like that. Then difficulties. Another challenge is difficulties setting up an environmental or an energy performance indicator system, a so-called NPI system. This is part of the 15,001. So companies that want to have an ISO 50001 energy management system, they have to set up an energy performance indicator system, and this is not easy. That's not easy. It's a challenge. Difficulty setting up an energy performance indicator system, particularly for beginners. So this is 15,001. Then Valerie. So far, all users are beginners. So when it was introduced, there was no company that had some sort of experience. For all of them, it was new. It was a totally new topic, and the energy area of a company, not only for energy managers, but also for energy auditors. So the people that do the validation of it. That was difficult, and it's still difficult. But the companies get used to it. So it's with everything. It's everything. What is new is kind of there is an effort, but after a little while you get used to it, and that's not a problem anymore. So then we introduced Excel files on different points in the internet for helping those companies. So acceptable effort as an Excel file has been offered for download, which is used by many companies. That was helpful. And then last thing is, for many users, it has been difficult to determine adjustment parameters such as reference interest rate and lifetime of an investment. So parameters that are sometimes hard to determine. These were challenges because the companies were beginners kind of. Okay, but I think it is handleable. It's not a problem anymore. What are the impacts? Sorry, what are the impacts? Oops. Doesn't work. Okay, what are the impacts? Energy management, by going that way, energy management gets a structure. Energy costs become controllable. And even more relevant, energy improvement potentials are being made visible by that. So it works. We could see that many companies, have found energy efficiency potentials by going that way. And so we had the feeling that it works pretty well. Energy management takes on greater importance in the companies. This is what many company people told us. Valerie, finally, a uniform assessment that the top management accepts, turning away from the payoff period as a decision-making indicator. That was very helpful as well. And most relevant, much more energy efficiency improvement measures have been implemented since then. So we can say, without having, do a scientific investigation so far, but we have the feeling that it works quite well. So it is quite successful. Okay, coming to the end. Transferability to other countries, perhaps to Bolivia. German administration and companies have so far 13 years of experience in legal-based ISO 15001 application. So many companies are used to it. 50001 is widely known in Germany. This is different from many other countries. ISO 50001 is complex and time-consuming to implement. Using Valerie is a challenge for beginners because it is new and it is, business-oriented kind of thing, and those that apply it are usually energy engineers. So the implementation of the two standards requires, in the long run, sufficient metering systems and perhaps additional staff. This is what we found out. Therefore, copying the German approach as it might be a bit too much for at the beginning. Therefore, my dear, is as follows. To start with, in countries with less energy management experience, it might make sense to not declare 15001 mandatory, but instead 50005, that is 50001 light. It was released, I think, 2 years ago or something. It's quite new. It's 50001 light. So say it again. To start with, in countries with less energy management experience, it might make sense to not declare 50001 mandatory, but instead 50005, and only in different business sectors, starting with that one, which has the highest energy intensity, because we think there are the biggest potentials. Based on the made experience, with the first Valerie standard, based on the made experience with the first Valerie standard, a more user-friendly national, perhaps Bolivian Valerie standard might be a better option than just copying it. So I have it with me. I can show it to those of you who are interested in it, but it is the first release. And it is like with all first releases, there are errors, there are, kind of text phrases that are difficult to understand, and therefore I don't think it might make sense to just copy it. So if a country or whatever organization might be interested in it, you should develop a new one maybe based on the Valerie experience, but with a more user-friendly language, for example. To start with, in countries with, as I said, with 15,001 and with based on the MADE experience with the first Valerie standard, a more user-friendly national standard might be a better option than just copying it. Before, the framework conditions for a successful implementation should be comprehensively investigated, of course. So to check whether it makes sense, or what are the ways of introducing or developing such a standard in a country like Bolivia, for example. What are the framework conditions? They should be investigated at the very beginning. I think it might be worthwhile to think about it. Thank you very much. Questions?
Hello. Two questions, actually.
Yeah.
This play where you have to do the evaluation and you have energy auditors at the same time, are all these people in-house? Are they? Okay, so in this case, there are lots of, many people who are doing this work. The ones that do the analysis, the energy auditors and all those. Are they all in-house, or are they external firms, or the government has auditors for these things?
It is, yeah, thank you. No, it is not in-house, because it is in-house people are considered as not independent. That's the problem. And therefore we have an accreditation system of external auditors, and we have, public authorities. So two kinds of things. One thing is when the companies when they apply the two standards, and when they fulfill the legal requirements, then they have to show the results to external energy auditors that are accredited, and they check whether everything has been calculated correctly, and then it's fine. Then they send a signal to the public authority: we have checked, we have validated it, and everything is fine. That's the way.
Okay. Yeah. The other question was about when there's subvention for energy, like in the case of Bolivia, when there's subventionize it. How would this work? Because that distorts the picture a bit.
No, there are no. It is not. They are not subventions. It is. As I said at the beginning, the application of these two standards is either mandatory for many companies, who have a consumption higher than 2.5 gigawatt hours per year, and that might be an incentive, or if they want to have tax reductions. Yeah, so they want to get privileges from the government, then they have to implement them. So it is not mandatory though, but if you want to get the tax reduction or levies from CO2 emission certificates, then you have to implement these two standards.
Okay, but no, returning to my question, you have two options. Let's say a dirty diesel procedure and with clean solar energy. Okay, so if you can be subventionized by having cheaper access to solar panels, or you can be subventionized if the cost of diesel is lower than the market price. So that distorts the net present value that you're calculating. How do you work those things out?
Yeah, okay. There's a problem in terms of energy efficiency measures and renewables, because so far, and that's a problem at the moment, so far, applying renewable energy, that means a shift from one energy type to the other, is not accepted by ISO 50001. So only energy efficiency is accepted, but they are working on it at the moment. So the 15001 standard is going to be updated or upgraded within the next, I guess, 1.5 years or so, so that also renewable energy is accepted as a measure to improve the so-called energy performance, and that's the point. So the companies that apply ISO 50001 have to prove an improvement of energy performance improvement. So, and this is being checked by external auditors as well. And the energy performance improvement is only possible with energy efficiency improvements and not renewable energy application. Yeah, but this is being changed at the moment. Yeah. Okay. Was that an answer for your question?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Further questions? Yeah.
And when you have energy saving action, do the companies receive any support for the financing of the introduction of these measures?
No, they don't get any support because it is, the support is the positive net present value, if you like. Yeah. So it makes sense, economically sense, to go that way. I mean, there are quite a few companies that complain about the whole thing. They say, oh, the government is pushing us to implement energy efficiency improvement measures, and that's not good for our business. And that's not right. The point is that the government is only pushing companies implement measures that are economically beneficial. So it makes sense for the companies regardless of the legal acts. So because it is those measures that have to be implemented, are positive for the companies, and therefore the government says we don't need any incentives. Yeah, that's the point.
Okay, and one thing more, and so there is no any consideration about greenhouse gases reduction on the whole process.
Yes, there is. As I said before, the problem of is renewable energy application acceptable as, or is considered as improvement of energy performance, was in the past not there. But now I myself I'm in the standardization group that is at the moment developing a new 15001 standard, and the new 15001 standard is not energy performance improvement oriented. It goes further. It goes to greenhouse. So we call it carbon performance improvement. Okay. So it's changing at the moment. Please wait. I would say 2 more years or something. It's an ongoing process, and the reason of that is that more and more people, particularly standardization people, said the 50001 is out of date. It does not make sense anymore. We are not only trying to improve energy efficiency. It's not enough. It's not sufficient. We should focus on greenhouse gas mitigation. Yeah, and therefore it is being changed now. So there will be the 15001 will exist in 2 years already. It will still exist in 2 years, but there will be an add-on standard. So the standard will be called 15001-2. Yeah, and this is climate change oriented.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
You said it economically makes sense to implement these measures. Yeah. Then I was wondering if the instrument necessary for companies to implement these measers is a law, or if it would be sufficient to do maybe a supporting program or some kind of consulting.
Yeah, I understand what you mean, and it's strange. From the outside view, it's strange, but this is the energy efficiency gap. This is what scientists, researchers have found out since the early 90s, that there are so many companies that have wonderful, huge energy efficiency improvement potentials, which would which would be economically beneficial to exploit them, but they don't do because of the barriers. The problem is, and this is what our experience is also with companies, is that there are huge potentials, but very often nobody cares about it in companies. That's a problem. Nobody cares about it. It's an educational problem as well, because who is responsible for cost reduction? So economically beneficial is something to reduce costs, right? So and who is responsible for cost reduction? Usually the management accountants. So the business section of a company. And they very often have no education in kilowatt or kilowatt hours or something like that. So they are kind of have problems with these energy things. So, and on the other hand, we have the energy managers, usually engineers, yeah? And they know everything, but they are not educated in business management things like investment appraisals. So we have two different kind of areas of people that are differently educated, and it does not fit together. So there are those that may have wonderful ideas, but they cannot communicate it as being something economically beneficial, and the others that would make the decisions for investments, but they don't understand kilowatt and kilowatt hours. That's the point. That's the point. I think it is a worldwide problem. Of course, I can't say for Germany, but I guess it's everywhere. Yeah.
So in my experience is everything starts also with transparency. If you don't know how much energy you consume in your processes, you can't identify all the measures for improvement. And I think that this is a point that is necessary to enhance the transparency of the processes, the energy consumption. With bringing in meters, it costs money because you have to pay for the meters, for the metering systems. And I think this is also a big hurdle for the companies. And how will the regulations deal with this problem?
Yeah, this is what we realize very often, that companies, successful companies, yeah, without any problems, but they don't have any metering system. They have just two: one for gas, one for electricity. And without having a good overview, without having this transparency, it is very hard to determine potentials. I mean, you need, at least for the big production facilities, you need metering system. But very often, Germany, I guess worldwide, many companies don't have that. And sometimes it's expensive, sometimes not. So electricity metering is not very expensive, but the companies don't have that. So we are still at the beginning. We're still at the beginning, and this is one of what you just said. It is one of the reasons why there is this energy efficiency gap. It's a huge gap worldwide, yeah, and we should exploit it. And saying, okay, I hope that the companies find them by themselves doesn't work, and therefore the government said, okay, we just want to help them to get on the right path. That's the idea behind that, I think. Yeah, and from my the experiences of the last 2.5 years, it seems to work. It's a new approach, and I thought this was the idea of this presentation. I thought maybe there are other countries that might be interested in that. It is. I think it is transferable. Okay. Any more questions? Great. Thank you very much. Gracias.
Hacemos una pausa antes de continuar con la siguiente exposición. Bueno, buen día. El expositor Armando Ávila García no se encuentra, ha tenido un percance, ha mandado un mensaje, por lo tanto vamos a hacer una pausa. Las personas que quieran estar viendo alguna otra exposición en el anfiteatro 1, 2 o 3, pueden ir, por favor, y nos veríamos nuevamente acá a las 11:10, ¿sí? Para la siguiente exposición.
That takes you higher, I will forever be intertwined with you. When the sun never goes down and time must slow down, would it be too crazy if we decided to stay forever. Decided to stay forever, forever. Jump into the fire. I'd like to see your wild side. We should run away. But the sun never goes down and time has slowed down. Would it be too crazy if we decided to stay forever? Decided to stay forever, forever.
you can't do anything about, right? Wrong. When the world turns its back on you, you turn your back on them. That's not what I was told. And maybe you need to listen. Repeat after me. Hakuna Matata. Hakuna Matata. It means no worries.
Just wanna be alone with you. Just wanna be alone with you. Just wanna be alone with you. Same old thing that keeps me around. If you wanna come around, baby, it's cool. And if you wanna fuck around, baby, I do. Just wanna be alone with you. Oh, with you. Oh, with you. Oh, with you. Oh, just wanna be alone. What was your name again? Since so many of them come, want me just play pretend. All your girls, they just wanna have fun, but it's the same old thing that we all see. Same old thing that keeps speaking, but I just wanna be alone with you. Just wanna be alone with you. The same old thing that keeps me around. If you wanna come around, baby, it's cool. And if you wanna fuck around, baby, I do. Just wanna be alone with you. Oh, with you. Oh, with you. Oh, with you. Oh, just wanna be alone.